Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. I'm your host, Brando, the Weed Commando. And we're going to start with this quick video from, I believe it's a local Fox channel from Utah. And like a lot of people these days, apparently they got too lazy to fucking, narrate the video. So I'm going to go ahead and read it to you while the video is playing. All right, here we go. A Utah medical marijuana advocacy group is threatening a lawsuit over the LDS's church's involvement in Proposition 2 compromise bill. Together for Responsible Use in Cannabis Education, TRUES believes cannabis leaders colluded with legislators. Who can read that fast? So anyway, let's go back. Fox 13, you're lazy. You're not news. This is garbage. So anyway, they colluded with legislators to materially alter the initiative. And we know that's true. I already did a video about this, so there's more to it though. Former Salt Lake City Mayor Rocky Anderson is representing TRUES. The group is threatening to sue if lawmakers move ahead with a December 3rd special session and replace Prop 2 with a compromise bill. Proposition 2, which legalizes medical marijuana in Utah, passed with about 53% of the vote. Not exactly a mandate. Now, let's stop right there. And let's realize that I'm not out here defending the language of the original bill. Believe me, it's fucking dog shit. All right? But it's Utah. What do you expect? And believe me, and you'll see why in a minute, the LDS Church was heavily involved in this process from the very beginning and probably helped write the original language that they're fucking so against. But I digress, and I'm not happy with what's going on and who's involved. The LDS Church has faced heavy criticism over its involvement. Yeah, no shit. The faith vocally opposed the initiative and urged its followers to vote against it. It also engaged in the negotiations over the compromise bill as a commodity stakeholder. Connor Boyack, the president of the Libertas Institute, defended the compromise bill and said it was 90% of what was in Prop 2. This is what I don't like, all right, guys? Now, if you've been following me on this channel and maybe you follow me on Twitter, you know that I don't like politicians by now. If you haven't figured that shit out, then here's what's up. All right, the government is a big fraud. Everything about it is fraudulent. All the politicians are complete scammers. All right, they don't represent you. They represent a donor class that basically bought the whole fucking government. All right, they don't work for us. They work for them. And now you got these libertarians. Now here's another thing about me. I don't fucking like labels. All right, I don't like them. Don't call me a stoner. Don't call me anything. Don't call me a fucking anything liberal. Don't call me anything conservative. Don't call me anything left or right. I don't like labels. And here's why. This here Connor Boyack, you negotiated with the devil. All right? You know who the devil is? Is the tyrants. You know who the tyrants are in Utah? The Mormon Church. I'm not a religious person either. If you have a prejudice against people that don't believe in fairy tales, that's fine with me. I don't care. And I'm not going to sit here and disrespect religion. I could do that on another day and do it all day. Because they don't deserve respect. Now the people that go to church and they just, they keep to themselves and they don't, spy on their neighbors and criticize everything they see, and they live by the doctrine of the real Jesus Christ and not this Republican invented one. Then, I'm not talking about the people that go to the church. I'm not talking about actual Mormons, although, there is some complicity in being a member of an organization that is as bad as the Mormon Church and full of lies and corruption. But this guy here, Connor Boyack, is the president of the Libertas Institute. He defended the compromise, saying that it was 90% of what it was in Prop 2. Now, if you look at what libertarians' doctrine is, I don't even know if they have one, but from what I understand, libertarians are supposed to be the liberal right-wingers. They're supposed to believe in personal freedom and all this other shit. Well, this is a guy that actually, like, I think he had a lot to do with the actual writing of the original language. And if you look at the original language, it is complete corrupt bullshit. Has nothing to do with freedom. Has nothing to do with individual freedom or liberty. Has nothing to do with anything that the libertarians would stand for. It's complete horse shit. And this guy is the front man for the bill. Every time I see someone come out and speak for the bill, it's this guy. Individually. Now, I know the other groups that are involved are good. This guy, not good. Why is this guy out front? Why don't we have somebody from the other groups that are against this compromise out front? Where are they at? They're barely out front, and they get hardly any media coverage. Certainly not from Fox. Apparently Fox cares what this guy thinks. He insisted the compromise averted the legislator potentially gutting the voter-approved initiative. Really? It did not avert the legislator doing anything. Because you're talking about the will of the people, dude. The legislator don't have no say in it. And as you know, they need a 2/3 majority to pass this compromise. All right, let's get back into this. So, yeah, weird place for the mic, but guess what? Here's why. I got a big joint. All right, I don't smoke little joints anymore. See that? That's what we blaze now. That's what we blaze in now. That's Wi-Fi. Just to let you know. I got to calm down. This story really is getting my goat. All right, guys, look. I talk about tyranny, too. You know, like I was telling you about my political views and shit. My political views are this. These guys are tyrants at this point. These politicians that are basically not doing the will of the people and doing the bidding of the corporations and the donor class and military industrial complex. These guys, this guy here spent $100,000 to defeat the initiative. Keep in mind his name, Walter J. Plum III. I did a clip about it. Wouldn't be highlighted unless I did. And it just doesn't, you know. I don't know why this guy's involved. Why is he involved in the negotiation process? Why would he be allowed in? He spent $100,000 to fight this initiative while it was in the initiative process. Look at him. This guy doesn't care about you or your rights. Not with this $5,000 suit on. He don't give a shit about you. He cares about him and his business interest. And that's it. You don't care about your moral values or your church. These Mormons, that's the one thing that I get, that they think that they're like really good and they have high moral standing, but they don't. It's hypocrisy, 100%. And the higher up the food chain you go with these people, the worse it gets. And a lot of people said, you know, well, the reason that you don't have a lot of subscribers, Brand, is because you throw right-wingers under the bus all the time. Well, why do I do that? Well, because they fucking beg for it. I throw Democrats under the bus pretty hardcore too. But when it comes to right-wingers, they beg for it. And how do I know this? Well, it's right here in the Christian Science Monitor. It's called religious tyranny, guys. And you know, yeah, I throw that word around there a lot. What is tyranny, right? Tyranny is an act or the pattern of harsh, cruel, and unfair control over the people. Does what these guys are doing rise to the level of harsh, cruel, and unfair control? We'll get to that in a minute, but yeah. Oh, for sure it does. For sure it does. And what is religious tyranny? Well, that's when the religious groups think that they have the right to basically take away your rights under the guise of religious freedom. Religious freedom. Sounds great, don't it? This country was founded on religious freedom. Believe it. Laissez-faire style. What it wasn't founded on is religion. And what it don't allow is religious tyranny. So Utah is basically just kind of like a breakaway state that ain't even part of the United States at this point, if it's going to let this happen. So why do I think this religious tyranny is such a big deal? Let's check into it. And why do I always criticize the right? Well, in this regard, I criticize the right wing of the country because, oh my God, they're the ones. Let me move this up a little bit here. Yeah, you know, don't need to see my quick links. But anyway, let's check out this religious tyranny real quick before we get right into it. The religious right is trying to justify its brand of politics by invoking the memory of our founding fathers. The least we owe that unequaled generation of Americans is to nip this blasphemy in the bud before it has a chance to become a fact. Our founding fathers were not conservative Christians. Most of them were deists. The history of James Flexner describes George Washington's religious views this way, quote, although not believing in the doctrines of the churches, he was convinced that a divine force impossible to define ruled the universe and that this providence was good. That was essentially the religious outlook of Washington, Franklin, Jefferson, Madison, Adams, and most of the founding fathers. The right-wingers are always trying to act like they can use religion to take away your freedom. That's a big thing to me. That's a big deal. That's huge. I don't like it. I'll speak out against it anytime I see it. And here I actually have a chance to do it because they're doing it again. Like the other time I did it on this channel was when this happened earlier this year. But if we rewind the clock, every time someone tries to legalize marijuana somewhere, we have the Catholic Church, because they care so much about the kids, and then we have the Mormons and everybody, all the churches get together, throw a bunch of money into a big cauldron, stir it up like a witch's brew, and pass it out to all the prohibitionists so that they can spend money on stupid commercials that no one fucking wants to watch and believes anyway. The religious right we shall always have with us. They are welcome to their religious beliefs, but they are not welcome to use government to impose their beliefs on the rest of us. It's against the Constitution. Religious freedom in the Constitution means you have the freedom to worship whatever religion you want. And the state will not bother you. Nobody will bother you. Nobody's allowed to bother you. You have certain rights as far as that goes, but it doesn't allow certain things. And one of the things is that there will be no sponsorship of any religion by the government, and there will be no basic control of the religious organizations in government, which is exactly what's going on in Utah and has been since who can tell you when it hasn't. The idea that the name of Jefferson should be invoked in such an attempt is truly unconscionable. Let the last word then go to Mr. Jefferson, who wrote to a friend, I have sworn on the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. It's pretty self-explanatory, but what it comes down to, guys, is religious tyranny is alive and well in Utah. So what do we got here? Let's go ahead and... is this the one? Yes. So, after a third revision, lawmakers say no more changes are expected to the medical marijuana bill ahead of special sessions. And the special session is in December. So this is like these guys are really pushing hard. Now I don't know what happened back in the earlier this month when the elections went down, and I don't know if there was some kind of changing of the guard in the state houses there, but they're really trying their hardest to get this done in some special lame duck session this before a new Congress is seated. Is there a reason for that? Is there something that I don't know about? I don't know. I should have looked into that, but I'm guessing there is. Why else would they be pushing to get this thing done in a lame duck so hard? You're talking about hundreds of pages of legislation, and where'd they even come up with that? This goes back to another thing that I keep talking about lately, is this, like, there must be like a invisible hand in these different legislators that have marijuana legislation just pre-packaged for their state according to what they think their state would get away with. Kind of like maybe Acreage Holdings might be behind this, or even ALEC themselves, the people that already do this shit for everything else. So they got this big package of shit, and they're like, hey, this is a good compromise. And the libertarian guy looked at it and said, yeah, that's about 90% of what we wanted, so sounds good. No, whatever. So the newest edition discards renter protections for medical marijuana patients. And why does it do that? Why do they do that? That's one of the ones that I don't like. But it increases the initial number of available licenses for cannabis pharmacies. So whenever you see these state legislators legalizing shit, they're looking out for their buddies that are the big businessmen that are going to make the big green rush. You don't want to hinder them, so try to make sure you accommodate them while you fuck up everybody else's day. And they're trying to claim that this original bill was unveiled in early October, was presented as a compromise that supporters and opponents of the cannabis ballot initiative could rally around. I want to know who's rallying around this, who are the supporters of the original ballot. Like, not too many people, I wouldn't think. Now, is there people that'll argue with me and say, but we have to have it because otherwise those Mormons wouldn't let it go through? And I just say, don't put it before the people, let them vote on it. You know, something real, something that makes sense. Because I think the people out there are educated enough to know some of these things that were the compromises before the thing even went to the compromise bill. The original language of the ballot initiative probably was a compromise just to accommodate this right-wing religious tyranny that they knew existed, so that they could, like, oh, we're gonna, you know, make it nice and palatable for them, when the people actually know that those things are just giveaways to corporate takeovers, and that any kind of thing that prevents them from growing or smoking, or, you know, maybe even being able to, you know, certain products that you're going to cancel, like flour or whatever. It's absurd, man. It's really disingenuous to sit there and act like you can't put forth a ballot initiative that is sensible, really has the patient and, you know, people that are already doing it in mind, and basically accommodating them. You're not accommodating anybody with this compromise. It's just kowtowing to the religious tyranny that runs your state. Advocates say that lawmakers continue meeting to shape the legislation, and I think the latest story was that there's going to be another meeting. Yeah, this one, there's going to be another meeting before the special session, I think. Isn't that what the headline was on this one? Whoops. Maybe. It didn't. I don't know. There was another search where I seen, but I guess there's going to be one more meeting to discuss this right ahead of the actual vote. And they say they have the they I guess they think they have the votes locked in to get this done. But remember, Niederhauser said the legislation needs support from 2/3 majority for it to take effect immediately. Now, you know, that's pretty funny wording, because what that means is if it doesn't take effect immediately if you don't get the 2/3, because that's not enough votes to overrun the ballot initiative. It's not just 2/3 to take effect immediately. It's 2/3, I believe, to take effect at all. Immediately just means, oh, well, it's going to have to go back and hammer out some more shit. Because I think they do have to hammer out something. You know, something that's not going to change the spirit of the original proposal in any major way that would be, you know, considered basically like taking a stab at the will of the people, which is all. It's everything they're doing is trying to stomp on the will of the people, trying to smush the will. They don't care what the people want. They are a religious authority. And if these politicians are like, hey, I'm not a religious authority, I'm not even a member of the church, I don't care. If you're bending to the will of the religious tyranny, then you're a religious authority yourself. You're like a police officer that it's just it's gross. All right, don't try to argue with me on this. This is just someone. I'm just a casual observer. I'm not some genius like in politics and know my. I'm just somebody that everybody in America should be. A common sense person that looks at this and says, looks like Utah is basically run by the church, and the church wants this thing killed or neutered to the max. And you know, if you think that this is gonna, if they pass this, if you think this is gonna get fired right up and they're gonna get started right away and get people going on medical marijuana, like, come on, come on. How long did it take, you know, a liberal state like Maryland or any of the other ones that legalize medical marijuana? How long did it take them to get a program up and running? How about one that's not liberal, like a Maine or a New Jersey? How about Florida? How liberal, how bad do you want it? When the legislator gets a hold of this stuff, it never comes out good. But this right here is horrible. So we got a bunch of changes to talk about. Now, is there anything else I really want to talk about in this article? I don't really care about it. I think I basically read everything about what's going on. Now, here's another quote from Boyack. The intent is that the bill is the final product. However, if there's any glaring problems or omissions, there's obviously time to address them. He's just the most go-along libertarian I think I've ever heard, man. So anyway, the House Speaker said they're happy with how the Medical Cannabis Act has come together. I bet you are, man, because when you're the Speaker, you're like middle management. You got people from all sides crunching you, like they all want their way to get, you know, through. And I guess somehow you just don't care about what the activists on the ground say. He said this bill is ready for prime time, and he's a Republican from Draper, I guess. It's ready to go through the committee process and go to the floor. Some Prop 2 supporters contend that lawmakers are overriding the state's voters by replacing the initiative with an alternative framework for dispensing medical marijuana. Aha. Doug Rice, a community liaison with the medical marijuana advocacy group Truce, said he agreed that Prop 2 was imperfect, but by swapping a 28-page initiative with a 287-page bill, lawmakers are overcomplicating and overregulating, he said. Rice is also concerned about what he believes is a rush to pass the legislation, like I said. Nothing that's done in a time crunch such as this is going to come out as well as something that has been thought out and that has been thoughtfully crafted over an extended period of time, he said. Former Salt Lake City Mayor Rocky Anderson, an attorney representing Truce and others, even called the plan to overwrite Prop 2's anti-democratic and contemptuous of the ballot initiative process, which is, to me, one of the most sacred things that we have in this country. Which, if you're somebody that thinks this country is a democracy, where, you know, majority rules and all that, yeah, it would be if, like, we ever got to make the choices through and through. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, we vote for whatever they hand us, and then if you're a Republican, you're like, oh, it's not a democracy, it's a republic. What's a republic? Well, a republic is supposed to be that the people that are running the show are at least representing, you know, they're representatives somehow. And we covered that, you know, the corrupt government covered that by making sure that there's, like, you know, somebody that everybody gets to elect in their local area and send off to Washington and feel happy about it. They don't represent you. I mean, if you're me, you've never had a politician really represent you. Because I've always been wanting to legalize marijuana since I was like a little kid. All right, I found out about what marijuana was and learned about it. And then by the time I would say 13, I was like, dude, this is bullshit. Why is this illegal? And anyway, I digress again. I do that a lot because this is the story, like, really comes to me in many ways as a, you know, it's one of those final straws. You know what I mean? Like, the religious tyranny is one of the biggest things holding marijuana legalization back in wherever it's still illegal. It is. when you look at the states that are still completely illegal and has shitty medical marijuana programs at best, it's the Bible Belt, straight up. Name one state in the Bible Belt that has any sensible marijuana policies, please. So I just, religious tyranny, I can go on and on about it, but when you're talking about what this guy said here, and if you can say that they are subverting the will of the people, and that the religious organization has an overarching command over this process, then that's religious tyranny, pure and simple. That you can't call it anything else. And why is it cruel and unusual? Remember, we had some kind of a, the definition had some qualifiers: harsh, cruel, and unfair control. It would be pretty harsh if I lived so far away from a dispensary that I couldn't go get my medicine when I needed it. So why shouldn't I be allowed to grow my own? All right? Cruel. You're telling people that rent apartments that their landlord can kick them out for using medical marijuana. Now, if I remember correctly, you can't even smoke or vape this medical marijuana in Utah, if I remember correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I think that was a part of the original bullshit language. But anyway, by telling somebody that they can't smoke their medicine, that's pretty cruel, harsh, and unusual, because that's how I use my medicine 90% of the time. I have no problem with smoke. I don't have lung problems. I quit smoking cigarettes, never had a lung problem. I smoked cigarettes for 30 years, and I also smoked weed the whole time too. And let's not forget, man, this is your guy right here. This is your guy who spent $100,000 to fight this thing, and then when it passed, he's all up in the mix making rules. And I want to find where he is mentioned here. Okay, here we are. Prop 2 critics this summer sued, seeking to block the initiative from the ballot. The pleading, backed by the wealthy developer and attorney Walter J. Plum III, he actually took the thing to court and tried to get rid of it. But he was arguing that it was requiring landlords to rent to medical marijuana users, and that could force members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to violate their conscience and infringe on landlords' property rights. So a landlord supposedly has these hidden property rights where I guess it's some kind of religious freedom plea. Like, hey man, it should be this guy's religious freedom plea to not rent to people that smoke marijuana. See, now there's where religion tyranny comes in. Real, out in the open, like, oh, you think that just because someone smokes marijuana, then they don't deserve housing. Or that some landlord can decide whether or not that they live there based on that. I've never heard of a landlord, unless it's in the fucking thing that you sign, the lease agreement. If you sign a lease agreement that says no smoking weed, that's you. That's on you. No smoking cigarettes, no smoking weed, no pets. As a landlord, you can make any kind of agreement you want. And it's up to you. I don't have a problem with that. But when you mandate that no landlord, that landlords, you're just basically kind of being a dick. You know what I mean? You can't, it's like you're just saying, oh, these guys can kick you out. Now, you signed an agreement, and it didn't say specifically when you signed your rent agreement that you can't use medical marijuana in your apartment. And again, let's not forget that you're not smoking or vaping it. You're just putting oil on or something, eating something. Nobody around, no other apartment even knows you're doing it. So what's the problem? But besides that, you were saying you're basically incentivizing a landlord to kick. I don't even know what, but it's just being a dick. So now that the landlord finds out that you put some oil on your knee, and he kicks you out because the government said they could, even though your rent agreement says they can't. So there's more religious tyranny. And the final piece of religious tyranny, I'm not going to talk about this anymore because I'm just getting kind of old. I'm not playing it up too much. This is purely why this whole thing is a problem. The original ballot language automatically was, they were writing it thinking, oh no, we better not let people smoke weed or nobody will vote for this because of the Mormon. You know, everybody's a Mormon, and obviously you can't smoke cigarettes, you can't even drink caffeine beverages. I mean, they're pretty strict on substances for some reason. That's like one of the weird things about some religions is they basically pick on certain substances and they're like, oh, that's out. But for some reason, no religion that I've ever heard of except for some strict forms of Islam says anything about whether or not you can drink alcohol. Isn't that funny? It's just fucking weird, ain't it? And a lot of the Catholic and Methodist and other religions they use alcohol in their rituals. So that's another weird thing. But somehow, every church I've ever heard of in my life is against marijuana. Every one of them. Maybe not the individual one you go to, but everybody that goes to it probably is. I don't know, guys. This religion butting in on this marijuana issue, it's getting really old. Because it doesn't even, in the Bible, first of all, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, whatever other religious book there is, I'm pretty sure none of them have anything in there whatsoever about marijuana being some banned substance. It would, and wouldn't you think it would specifically say that? As hard as these religious organizations go against weed, you would think there's passages that they can pull right up and be like, look, right here and right there. And the closest they can come is that they say something about how the body is the temple and you're not supposed to abuse it. Okay, well, prove that smoking marijuana is abusing the body or the temple or whatever you want, whatever you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. As far as we know, all the things in marijuana are naturally occurring naturally occurring compounds that you can consume safely without limit. It's just unreal. So that's how it is. You know, this guy's heavily involved in the process. All the way through it. Because he's got money and he's got influence. I believe like the college, like Brigham Young University or whatever. So here's the libertarian guy again. The provision is largely irrelevant because no landlord is going to have any idea if you're consuming a few drops of oil or lotion on your knee. Oh, really? You know, I know I said that too, but you're the libertarian. I thought the libertarians were supposed to be for personal freedom. What if somebody was smoking medical marijuana? And what you don't understand, what libertarians don't seem to get, is medical marijuana laws were mostly formed and passed by activists as a form of protection. As a minimal form of protection that someone could use medical marijuana as a defense if they got caught with smoking weed. So by you're taking a completely weird position by saying that you really don't think it's a big deal. That landlords, and by the way, like I said, I'm not saying landlords have to be forced to let people smoke marijuana. If the landlord wants a new rule, you can be like, okay, let's put this in the lease agreements from now on. If you smoke medical marijuana, or not smoke, but use whatever, if you use medical marijuana, sorry, can't rent here. That's just my policy. You know what? If I read that in the lease agreement, I'd be like, okay, see you later, dude. I'll take my money somewhere else in my life. Like, when you go to rent something, that's a serious commitment that you're making with not only the landlord, but the people that live around you and stuff. So I'd be wouldn't want to move to a place full of people that are against medical marijuana, period. So anyway, over talked about thing. This whole landlord thing, this is another one of these things that unfortunately we have to wait for like 20 or 30 years for the stigma to wear off before people finally treat this like it's not some kind of cyanide or some shit. He went on to say, coupled with the fact that Walter Plum is trying to overturn the entire Utah Medical Cannabis Act based on that provision, it wasn't worth the keep. See, that's the whole problem with you guys. You were compromising with ghosts before this guy even came along. And then he came along with a bunch of bags of money and court papers and shit, and you just started buckling at the knees. That's not very brave and tough. That's not what an activist does. The basic structure for the program to dispense medical cannabis has stayed largely intact in the past couple of months of negotiations. What was these largely intact, provisions? The number of grower licenses was reduced from 15 to 10. Although the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food can authorize another 5, the cannabis cultivators are capped at 100,000 square feet of indoor capacity or 4 acres outdoors, but can apply for increases. Patients under 21 whose doctors recommend medical marijuana treatments must also seek approval from a compassionate use board, a group of medical providers who review special cases. What do you guys think? Some kid's gonna just go in there and be like, hey, I want medical marijuana? I mean, and here's what I don't like, though. The compassionate use board was enlarged from 5 members to 7, 2 of whom must be pediatricians. Oh boy, I haven't had too good of experience dealing with pediatricians on this issue. The updated bill stipulates that cannabis grower or processor can be located in industrial or agricultural zones. Pharmacies can be situated in non-residential zones. People who incur a misdemeanor drug distribution charge after the effective date of this bill are disqualified from producing or dispensing cannabis. So again, these people in Utah have no plans on reforming marijuana laws in a greater sense. And you can see it right there. I mean, if you've had a misdemeanor drug offense for marijuana, or I guess drugs in general, then we don't want you involved in the medical marijuana business. Now, I mean, is that because you think there's some kind of drug fiends and are just going to go in there and steal all your weed? This is just absurd. You're cutting. We're trying to reform these laws and make it so we're going to heal the old wound. And the only way we're going to heal the old wound is if we let people that you've demonized and basically, persecuted because they smoke weed, and whether that be through like a charge, actual jail or prison time, a permanent record, a felony, whatever it is, a burnt piss test, fear of burning a piss test so people don't even try to get certain jobs. My whole life has been altered because of piss tests, basically. Like, I just don't even bother with anything that would be considered you have to go get a piss test for it. Because why bother? There's no way I'm going to pass it. The only thing you can fail a piss test for is fucking weed. Anyway, guys, pretty much done with this. But, what's my final say on it? My final say is that this religious tyranny has to unplug itself from this issue, please. I don't understand why. Where are you guys coming from with this anti-marijuana stance? Especially, when in the Bible it basically says that you can use any seed-bearing plant for whatever you want. That's pretty straightforward, ain't it? And one final note. The libertarian guy, again, said that, this is not that big of a deal, man. Chill, relax, bro. Everything's cool, man. They didn't take a whole lot out. This particular compromise that we did this time, not that big of a deal. And as is the whole thing, everything in it. He loves it. It's great. Let's do this. Well, one of the things that it got rid of in the first compromise was autoimmune disease. You might think, well, that's just one thing, Well, no, it ain't. Here's what autoimmune disease is. It's a disease in which the body's immune system attacks healthy cells. And a lot of the medicine that they try to give people for this shit makes it go in hyper mode. And that, you know, I'll tell you a few of these on the list. I've had people in my life that had them, and it was horrible, the pain that they went through. And we'll start right off with rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, my grandma had it. You know, her fingers look like someone smashed them up with a hammer and they healed all broken and shit. That's what rheumatoid, just terrible, terrible disease that affects joints, and especially in the hands. And my grandma used to be the person that cut my hair. Now I don't have anybody. But basically, like, you know, she couldn't do it after that shit got too bad when she was in her 70s. We have so many. We got lupus. I mean, and it's so sad, the people that have these, knowing that cannabis is one of the best possible things you could use for this, because cannabis, the CB1 and CB2 receptor in every immune system function, all the way from blood cells on up. So it's just sad, man. Celiac disease, Sjogren's syndrome, polymyalgia, rheumatica, multiple sclerosis. I suck at pronouncing these, by the way. Ankylosing spondylitis, and that's another inflammatory arthritis. This time it affects the spine and large joints. And I also know somebody that has that, and they thank God for, you know, medical marijuana every day. So all you religious people, I'm not religious, but the person that I'm talking about that has this particular form of arthritis in their spine, they are very religious. And when they first started using medical marijuana, they were just using CBD because they were like, oh, I don't want to get high. And it was basically a topical. And I said, why don't you try eating the CBD? And they did that, and way better. And then I was like, you should really try some THC, and you can actually get THC like lotion or something, as long as it has a lot in it, and that'll probably work pretty good. And after they got used to that, then they're ready to try heavier doses of THC in edible forms. And to this day, that's one of the people that tell me, you know, I'm religious, so I don't know why you always throw us under the bus. And I'm like, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I'm throwing the tyranny under the bus. There should be no reason for that. The church should embrace cannabis. And she told me, yeah, because, you know, it's because of cannabis that I can actually move around and do things like gardening and all the things that I used to want to do, but I couldn't even move. And of course they were weighed down. She was also weighed down on 5 different pills, and now she takes no pills. Type 1 diabetes is another one that we're finding more and more research saying how good of a preventative thing with people with autoimmune disease and that are prone to getting type 1 diabetes. You know, just read up on it yourself, man. Alopecia areata, which is sudden hair loss that starts with one or more circular bald patches that may overlap. Vasculitis, temporal arteries, which is, these are inflammations of the blood vessels and arteries. So that's what I got on this, and that's another thing. Like I said, they cut that out. These are big giveaways to big pharma. This guy's a big pharma looking guy. He's heavily connected with his buddy over here. Oh, he ran a law firm with his friend Orrin Hatch. He owns a pharmaceutical company that sells nutritional supplements and products marketed to women. Whatever, man. We know the kind of money you come from, and we know the tyranny involved. Has nothing to do with morals, has nothing to do with the church thinking that certain substances should be banned. It's really all about, when it comes to medical marijuana in Utah, it's all about the money. It's all about Big Pharma's hand, and people like him, their hand are deep in it. He's already probably seen massive losses from CBD. He probably has CBD in his repertoire now. I don't know. I haven't checked his portfolio out, but if he don't, then he's losing money to it in Utah already. And who knows what else. So That's all I got on this. Sorry it took so long. We'll get another update on this, I'm sure, when they vote on it and see what happens.